My name is Marisa Bolivar, and I'm a dietitian, and I kind of helped to start the Wholesome Kitchen, this community nutrition program, many moons ago. I think it's been a couple years at least, and Leah and I have been not only a great team with that, but we've really enjoyed it, trying to bring some good nutrition education to our community free of charge. This is going to be a little bit different because today we have Brooklyn George, and I'm really excited that she's going to be presenting some information to you on plant-based nutrition. I teach at Cal Poly, and one of my responsibilities in our department is helping out with the graduate program. And we have a really wonderful, robust graduate program in nutrition, and Brooklyn is part of that program. It's a combined Master's of Science with a dietetic internship. And a dietetic internship is a postgraduate experience that's 1 or 2 years. And after you're completed with that program, it enables you to sit for the exam for licensure to become a registered dietitian. Brooklyn is in her last year of this program. And this was actually a rotation for her in community nutrition to see the farm and to identify some projects that could be meaningful for our community. And so we were thinking it would be really fun for her to present some nutrition education. And this is definitely her domain. She's been plant-based for many years. And so this is a dialogue that she's really comfortable with. And I'm really excited to hear all of the wonderful information she's going to share with you. So thank you so much for being here. And I'm going to turn it over to Brooklyn.
Cool. Thank you so much, Marisa. Yeah, I am Brooklyn, and for some background, I did my undergrad at the University of Mississippi, and so I have a degree in nutrition, and like Marisa said, I'm working on my master's and dietetic internship at Cal Poly, and I've been vegan for 9 years, so I am especially interested in plant-based nutrition. Marisa also introduced me to the farm here, and it is so wonderful. I love what they're doing for the community. If you've never been, you really need to check it out. Right now they're producing a lot of carrots, greens, tomatoes, squash, sweet peppers, hot peppers, cucumbers, beets, eggplant, and melons. And you can go volunteer on Sundays and get whatever produce you would like. And you can actually check it out after this talk. It might be a little dark by then, but you can still check it out. Yeah, the farm operates on donations, so if you're able to give back, that's really appreciated. And so the salad today that you will be served soon is a lentil chickpea salad with a ton of fresh veggies from the farm that me and Matt picked this morning. Yeah, so thank you, Matt. Cool. You'll have the recipe for that on your handout too. So today we are going to go over, we're going to talk about what plant-based actually means, and then we're also going to talk about why people choose to be plant-based and some nutrients of concern on a plant-based diet, things that you might want to look out for if you're plant-based. So we're going to talk about B12, calcium, vitamin D, iron, zinc, omega-3s, and of course protein. And then I'm also going to share some recipe ideas with you and going to do a cooking demo for chocolate mousse, which you will also get to sample as your dessert. And then we're going to talk about meat analogs. We're going to talk about choosing a milk alternative. And we're going to also talk about some simple plant-based swaps and just some tips for going plant-based. Okay, so just for the simple definitions, if you don't know, so vegetarian is just anyone who doesn't eat meat, and usually vegetarians will still eat milk or eggs or both. And then vegan excludes meat, dairy, and eggs, and all animal products. And so vegans are usually, it's usually an ethical choice about reducing the exploitation of animals, like avoiding exploitation of animals. So vegans usually, it's a whole lifestyle. It also means that you don't wear leather, or you don't you use cruelty-free products that aren't tested on animals, and stuff like that. So it's a whole lifestyle. So then plant-based can kind of mean the definition of plant-based is a lot more vague, a lot more open-ended. It basically just means a diet that emphasizes plants. And some people who say they're plant-based, they might be vegetarian, they might be vegan, they might be flexitarian, where like they eat animal products sometimes. But what we're going to talk about today is a whole food plant-based diet, because most of the health benefits that you get from eating plants come from eating whole foods. And foods that are minimally processed. So that means emphasizing fruits and vegetables. It emphasizes whole grains, beans, lentils, nuts, seeds, and then it will limit things like added sugars and refined grains, like white flour, for example. It'll limit fried foods and foods that are high in refined oils as well. And that being said, some processed foods can still be part of a healthy whole food plant-based diet. For example, foods like tofu and plant milks and whole grain breads, those are all processed foods, but for the most part, they're minimally processed and they're very nutrient rich. And so it can still be part of a healthy whole food diet. The key is just to just stick to foods that are as close to their natural form as possible, and leave room for balance and flexibility in your diet. So we're going to talk about why people choose to go plant-based. So there are a lot of health benefits to being plant-based. So for one, there's this study called the EPIC Oxford study. EPIC is an acronym, although the study was pretty epic because they had over 60,000 participants, and it was in the UK. And one of the main things they found from this was that vegetarians and vegans had a 22% lower risk of getting heart disease than meat eaters. So that's a significant risk reduction, especially since heart disease is the number one killer of Americans. And then there's also another study I want to mention is the Adventist Health Study, and they studied 96,000 Seventh-day Adventists across the whole, across all of North America, and that found that vegetarian diets were associated with lower rates of diabetes, metabolic syndrome, hypertension, all-cause mortality, so just death in general, and also some cancers. So that's, once again, significant data. And then my favorite study that I'm going to mention today is this huge NHANES study that they did. They followed 400,000 adults over 16 years and just looked at their dietary patterns. And they found that replacing just 3% of your energy from animal protein and replacing it with plant protein had a 10% reduction in mortality and a 12% lower risk of cardiovascular death. So even small changes can make a big difference, and even just being more plant-based can make a huge difference for your health. And then a lot of people also choose to eat more plants for ethical reasons as well. Their animal products have a huge impact on the environment, much larger than plants. And one of the main reasons why that is because animals, most of the animals people eat are in factory farms, and they're being fed crops that we grow. So it takes way more land to grow enough crops to feed the animals, to then eat the animals, than it is to just eat the plants directly. So that takes way more land, way more energy. It uses more greenhouse gases when you're, harvesting them and transporting all of them. And also, cows release methane as well. And methane is a really potent greenhouse gas. It's 26 times more potent than carbon dioxide. So those reasons combined, the extra land usage and the extra resources needed to produce meat, as well as the just the cows themselves producing methane, those are contributing to why animal agriculture is responsible for 15% of global greenhouse gas emission worldwide. And so it's contributing to climate change. And then additionally, growing all those crops also uses a ton of water. And so I wanted to mention that in California specifically, 47% of the water in California is used to produce meat specifically. Most of the water in California is used for agriculture, which makes sense. We need to eat, but it's far less efficient to be watering all those crops to feed to cows, to eat the cows, than it is to just water crops and eat the food directly. So another huge reason why people go plant-based is for animal welfare reasons, as you can imagine. And so each year, 85 billion animals, land animals alone, are killed for meat, and 99% of them are in factory farms. So it's a really sad thought with the amount of meat that people eat every single day. We can't produce that much meat without all of these factory farms, and so that's why a lot of people want to eat mostly plants, so that it's more sustainable and less impact on animals and the environment. And on top of that, there are also several human rights issues that contribute to people choosing to be plant-based. For example, when you have these factory farms and these large animal feeding operations, they produce a lot of waste, and next to a lot of farms there are these huge lagoons of waste from the farms that they just don't know what to do with it. And that waste can leach into the water supplies, and it can pollute the air nearby. So for communities living next to giant factory farms, their air and water can be polluted as well. And on top of that, slaughterhouse workers, nobody wants to work. Yeah, nobody wants to work in a slaughterhouse. It's kind of like the worst possible job you can imagine. It's very traumatic and so those are usually people that have no other options that are working in slaughterhouses. And so there's a lot of concerns with worker rights, and there's a lot of safety concerns that come up in slaughterhouses, and also just trauma from working in that, something people don't really think about. And also, when you have so many animals in such confined spaces, that really increases your risk of disease outbreak. And so in order to mitigate that risk, they tend to use a lot of antibiotics. and 70% of the antibiotics used globally are used specifically for farm animals. And so that is actually a huge problem because it's contributing to global antibiotic resistance. So when we do have diseases break out, which is more likely to happen when we have all these animals crammed together, when we do have these diseases break out, it's a lot harder to manage that when the bacteria is antibiotic resistant. Cool. So those are a lot of great reasons to go plant-based. Yes.
I've seen physicians disciplined in peer review for one extra dose of antibiotics, yet 70% of antibiotics are used in livestock. Isn't that where the resistance really occurs? These hospital-acquired infections.
I'm not an expert on antibiotics, so I'm not sure exactly how it like directly affects hospitals and like disease resistance in a hospital setting. But I know that it's a global problem of bacteria becoming more and more resistant to antibiotics, and it's like constantly trying to catch up. And I know that using such a huge amount of antibiotics in animal products is massively contributing to that problem. Thank you. Okay, so if you're interested, we can share the slides with you if you're interested, and I have the sources to those studies I mentioned about the health benefits. Okay, so those are a lot of great reasons to go plant-based. So we're gonna focus now on how to go plant-based. So just like any diet, it's important to make sure that a plant-based diet is properly planned out to make sure that you're getting all of your nutrient needs. So one nutrient that that can be harder to get on a plant-based diet is B12. So B12 is an essential nutrient. It helps produce red blood cells, it synthesizes DNA, it supports your nervous system, and unfortunately, there are virtually no plant-based sources of B12 outside of fortified foods. B12 is made from a bacteria, and it's found in soil and water, and so animals get B12 by eating plants and like eating grass and stuff like that, and eating a little dirt with it and drinking from natural streams and stuff. But humans wash our vegetables and we filter our water, as we should. That's very important. It keeps us from getting sick, but it means that we're not really getting B12 like all the herbivores are. And most of the animals that are used for food aren't actually getting B12 because they're in factory farms, and so they're just getting fed crops. They're not getting it from the soil, so they're actually supplemented with it most of the time. So that's the only reason that meat eaters really get B12 is because the farm animals were supplemented. So the natural conclusion is if you're plant-based, you should be supplementing B12. It's really important, especially if you're not regularly eating things like plant-based milks that are fortified with it, or nutritional yeast, for example, is fortified with it. But if you're not regularly eating those things every single day, it's good to take a B12 supplement. The RDA is 2.4 micrograms per day. That's the recommended amount. If for children, it's half that. And most supplements that you buy will have well over that amount. So you don't really need that much. A lot of times if you look at it'll tell you the percent RDA and it'll say like 1,000%. So you don't really need that much, but it's not likely to harm you because B12 is one of those vitamins that if we get too much, you'll just excrete it through urine. It takes a lot of B12 to become a problem. but it is something that you need every day. So next we're going to talk about calcium. Okay, so about 500 milligrams of calcium per day is sufficient for most people. The dairy industry has done a lot of lobbying and spent a lot of money to convince you that you need to have cow's milk in order to have strong bones. But the research actually suggests that milk consumption doesn't actually help fracture risk. And there's even some evidence that the type of sugar in milk called D-galactose can actually be harmful for our health. So what are some good sources of calcium? We have fortified plant milks. Usually when you buy plant milk from the store, it's going to be fortified with more calcium than is in regular cow's milk anyway. So it's really great source. One thing to note is that with these plant milks, you should shake them up before you drink them because the calcium settles to the bottom. A lot of things settle to the bottom a lot. So yeah, it's good to shake them. It'll make it taste better, and you'll actually have calcium in every cup. Yes.
What can you give me an example of the plant milk? So would that be oats?
Yeah.
And,
yeah. I'm gonna talk.
Almond nuts.
Yeah. So all the store-bought milks like oat milk, and almond milk, soy milk, they have like cashew milk and like hemp milk and stuff like that. Yeah, pecan, they have all of that. Most of those are gonna be fortified with calcium. You can always just check the nutrition label and see if it has calcium added. Yeah. Yes.
So how is the calcium fortified plant milk different from the calcium fortified cow's milk?
So cow's milk isn't fortified with calcium, it's in there naturally. I'm not sure. I mean, I think the calcium itself is relatively the same. It's just that milk there's some other concerns with it, like that D-galactose. Yes.
And then I've been told not to take calcium in supplement form.
Yes, I'm going to talk about that next. Yes, I was just, yes, thank you for asking. Yeah, so, yeah, I'll talk about that in 1 second. I just wanted to go over some of the other sources of calcium. So plant milks are great, but also tofu is really high in calcium because it's processed with calcium. It's like part of the process. And then also broccoli, kale, bok choy. Those are all really great sources. And then surprisingly, one of the best sources of calcium is blackstrap molasses, which I've never tried, but I kind of want to after seeing how much calcium is in it. And there are some things that can affect how well you actually absorb that calcium. Unfortunately, coffee can limit your absorption. So if you're putting your plant milk in coffee every day, you're probably not getting that much of the calcium from it. And then there are some other foods like spinach and beet greens and Swiss chard that are really high in calcium, but they're also really high in something called oxalates. And the oxalates bind to calcium and make it so that your body can't absorb it very well. So even though they're, like it might say on the label, it has a lot of calcium, you're not getting very much of it. So you might be thinking, you were just wondering about supplements. And yeah, supplementing calcium is not recommended. The research shows that it doesn't actually help with fracture risk, but it does increase your risk for heart disease. And the reason why is when you take a supplement, the calcium kind of floods like into your, it spikes the calcium level in your blood. And this triggers what's called a hypercoagulatory state. And that just means that it's contributing to blood clotting. And so over time, taking a calcium supplement can cause blood clotting and eventually increase your risk for heart attack. So yeah, I would not recommend taking a calcium supplement. When you get calcium from foods in your diet, it's released much, much slower into your blood, and your body can absorb it much more easily. And yeah, it's much safer. So we're gonna just touch on vitamin D, iron, and zinc. So vitamin D is also really important for your bone health, because if you don't have enough vitamin D, then you won't actually be able to absorb calcium. There aren't that many food sources of plant-based food sources of vitamin D, aside from mostly just more fortified foods. But the good thing is that we don't need to get it from food, because when we're exposed to sunlight, we produce vitamin D. So for most people, just 20 minutes a day of your face and arms exposed to sunlight will help you produce enough vitamin D. If you have a darker skin tone, or if you're wearing sunscreen every single day, that makes it harder to absorb the calcium. Not calcium. It makes it harder to get enough sunlight and produce enough vitamin D. So if you're wearing sunscreen, it might be more like 40 or 60 minutes a day, depending on the the strength and how much the UV rating and things like that. So if you aren't regularly getting if you're not regularly getting a lot of sun, or you wear sunscreen every single day, or you're just inside a lot, I would recommend getting your vitamin D status assessed so that you can see if you are deficient. I actually I got mine assessed like a year ago, because I was like really tired, and they found out I was deficient in vitamin D. And I'm like, that makes sense, because I wear sunscreen every single day. And that's okay, because it's a really easy fix with a vitamin D supplement. And depending on how deficient you are, your doctor will recommend a good amount. But I wouldn't necessarily go supplementing it if you don't think you're deficient, or if you are getting sun.
You're
Yes.
talking about D3.
All forms of vitamin D can be converted into the proper form. So whatever form you get will work. Yes, Marisa.
D3 might be a little bit more available now.
Okay, yeah, D3. Thank you, Marisa. Yeah, D3 can be more. It can be more easily absorbed. And a lot of times D3 supplements come from lanolin, which is made from sheep's wool, so it's not plant-based. So if you're 100% plant-based, you can either get D2, or there are some plant-based sources of D3. You just have to find them. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
I've heard a lot lately about vitamin D should be taken with K2. What is the relationship on those two?
I am not sure. Have you heard about that, Marisa? Okay. Yeah, I can look into that for you. If my email is going to be on one of the papers you're going to pass out, and so if you want to email me, I will definitely look into that for you. Cool. Yeah, I would love to get an educated answer to that. Thank you. Cool. So also let's talk about zinc really quick. So zinc is really important for your immune system. And the best plant-based sources of zinc are whole grains, legumes, nuts and seeds, and also fortified cereals. But the plant-based sources of zinc, it's harder to absorb once again, it's harder to absorb the zinc from the plant-based sources. So that's just why some plant-based people may just want to look out for that. So some tips to absorbing that zinc better is with legumes, like beans and stuff. If you soak them overnight, you'll actually you'll absorb the zinc better. And that also goes for if you're buying the beans in a can. They've basically been soaking for a really long time, so you'll absorb the zinc better from that than if you were to just buy dry beans and cook them right away and eat them right away. So yeah, soak your beans. Really easy, easy way to get more zinc from them. And then also eating fermented foods like miso and tempeh helps with absorption as well. And then iron. Iron is important for your red blood cells, and iron deficiency anemia can make you really tired and result in fatigue. So some plant-based sources of iron are lentils, spinach, beans, dried apricots, and then also enriched cereals and grains. But these sources of iron are what is called non-heme iron. And non-heme iron is not absorbed as well as heme iron. And heme iron is found in animal products. So that's another reason why people look out for iron when they're plant-based. So some tips to get enough iron if you're worried that you're not getting enough, or if you know that your iron might be like a little on the low end, like if you give blood a lot, or if you try to give blood and they won't let you because your iron's low. Then some ways to get your iron up are if you cook in a cast iron skillet, some of that iron will actually leach into your food, and that's the same iron that your body uses to make blood cells. So cooking in a cast iron skillet is a great way to just easily increase your iron, the iron you're getting. Also, vitamin C helps you absorb iron better. So if you're, for example, if you're cooking something with like spinach and beans or something, you could add in like a bell pepper, because bell peppers are really high in vitamin C. Or if you have some kind of citrus fruit with your iron sources, you will absorb that even better. And then if you do supplement iron, just be careful with that, because it can cause constipation and stomach aches. I used to supplement with it. It was just part of a multivitamin, and my stomach hurt all the time, and I didn't know why. And I finally figured out there was iron in my supplement, and so I just stopped taking that years ago, and don't get stomach aches anymore. So yeah, just watch out for that. And I did not need to be supplementing it at all, because iron status is totally fine, even though I haven't supplemented for many years. So yeah, I wouldn't supplement unless you need to. Yes.
So I had a lady tell me a couple days ago that she was really tired and run down, and she found out she had a normal hemoglobin but a low serum iron level, and that was the reason she was fatigued. But her hemoglobin was normal. Is that the reason she was feeling tired and fatigued? Was just a low serum iron? Don't you have to have a low hemoglobin as well?
I'm not 100% sure on that. Once again, if you want to email me, I can look into that for you. But yeah, I do know that sometimes when doctors test for iron deficiency with the basic test, they might not find the deficiency right away with one test, and it might take other tests to find out what this specific deficiency is. Did she ever like fix her fatigue?
I thought she getting up at 2 a.m. with 8 kids and plus 3 jobs was enough to make her tired. impressed. And I didn't think the little serum iron had anything to do, but I didn't know
Yeah.
how to tell her that.
Yeah, it could also be that for sure. Yeah, that would definitely do it. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Okay, so omega-3s are another important nutrient. They're really important for brain function, and they're also anti-inflammatory. And they come in 3 different forms. They're EPA, DHA, and ALA. And so most of the plant sources of omega-3s are that ALA form. And these sources are flax seeds, flaxseed oil, chia seeds, hemp seeds, walnuts, and canola oil. Those are all really high in ALA. But you might not want to rely solely on those sources to get your omega-3s because that ALA form isn't the form that your body uses. Your body uses the EPA and ALA forms, and it can convert ALA into DHA and EPA, but it's not very efficient and it's not very reliable. So if you're only getting ALA sources of omega-3s, you might not get enough. So how do you get EPA and DHA? The most common sources that people talk about are seafood and fish oils, but there isn't any strong evidence that fish oils have any benefit. So that's not recommended. And then fish can have their own set of concerns like mercury in fish and pollutants in the water like PCBs are harmful chemicals that are outlawed but have still made their way into our water supply and can bioaccumulate in fish, meaning that as you go up the food chain, fish can accumulate more and more in the fish of the food chain, and those are harmful. So the good news is that fish are not the only seafood. Algae is a seafood, and the fish get their omega-3s from algae. They get it from eating algae. So algae and sea vegetables are full of omega-3s. So if you happen to eat a lot of edible seaweeds, that is really great. Most of us probably don't eat a ton of edible seaweed all the time. It's not really a staple here like it is in some other cultures' cuisines. So a great option to get those EPA and DHAs are to supplement them. This supplement on the screen is what the Consumer Reports recommends for algal oil. And a great thing about algal oil is that it's grown in tanks, not in the ocean, so you don't have to worry about any pollutants in them.
And is the 300 recommended daily?
Yes, that would be an appropriate amount, yeah. And then let's talk about everyone's favorite thing to talk about when you talk about plant-based diet is protein. So there's a lot of misinformation out there about protein. There's a lot of people who really overstate how much protein you need, especially people who are on the internet trying to sell you protein powders, for example. They'll tell you need like a crazy amount, like a gram per, they'll tell you like double your body weight or something like that. It's crazy. You do not need that much protein. The average American gets way more than enough protein without trying. The actual official recommendations for protein are 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. And so, for example, for somebody who weighs 180 pounds, that is 65 grams of protein. And the best way to make sure you're getting enough protein is just to make sure that you have some kind of protein source with every meal. And if you're doing that, you're likely meeting all of your protein requirements easily. So there are a lot of great plant-based sources of protein. We have beans, we have chickpeas, lentils, nuts, seeds, seitan, which is wheat gluten. It's made by they basically just take like a high gluten flour and knead it together underwater and like rinse away the starch, and you're left with this like ball of like meaty protein, but it's made from wheat. And also, of course, soy sources like tofu, edamame, which is young soybeans, if you didn't know that, and TVP, aka textured vegetable protein. I have a picture of that on the screen if you've never heard of it. It's also just soy, but with like the fat removed. It's really convenient. I would recommend trying it. It's really like convenient for like tacos or something like that. It's also really cheap, which is nice, and it like lasts forever in your fridge. And then also tempeh, which I also have a picture of, in case you've never seen that at a store. And also soy milk is a good protein source as well. And then plant-based meat alternatives like vegan chicken or like Impossible Burgers also have a lot of protein. And I'm going to talk more about those later. But I wanted to mention that that there are 9 protein is made up of amino acids, and 9 of them are essential, and different plants have different amounts of these 9 essential amino acids. And so it's just important to get a variety of protein sources. And so if you're eating, you don't want to just eat the same thing for every single meal, you know. And as long as you're getting a variety of protein sources, you'll get all of those 9 essential amino acids.
Brooklyn?
Yeah.
Is that per meal that you should strive for the mix to the combination, or is that per day? Or how do you measure that you're mixing?
It's not really necessary to measure, because you will get enough if you eat a variety throughout the day. You don't need to like pair them together at each meal. That's like they used to say that you needed to do that, like you needed to eat beans and rice together because that made a complete protein, but that's kind of outdated. And as long as you're eating a variety throughout the day, you're totally fine. You're gonna get enough. That's a great question. Thank you. Yes.
Is it the
seitan?
Is that the kind of a glob of bread stuff that you were talking about?
Yeah,
How
yeah.
do you go about eating that?
It doesn't. You're making a face. It's not. It tastes like it has a very meaty texture. Really, like it's really surprising. Like it literally like feels like meat. One thing I've noticed is that a lot of like vegan deli meats are made out of it. And I've been to a lot of like vegan deli like restaurants that like all of their plant-based meats are just made out of seitan. Yeah, and it's really, yeah, so deli meats are a really popular way to eat it. That's kind of the only way I've eaten it. Yeah, but it's actually good. I would give it a try, especially if you ever come across a restaurant that serves them, or those like in the store, if you just find those like plant-based like deli slices, it might be made out of seitan, and you can try it that way. Cool. So since we were talking about soy a little bit with the protein, I wanted to talk about a common misconception that people have, that a lot of people think that soy has estrogen, and that consuming soy can like disrupt your hormones in your body. But that is not true. Soy has something called phytoestrogens, and those are those are used very differently in the body than regular estrogens, and it's not eating phytoestrogens is not like taking estrogens at all. And they've actually found benefits to phytoestrogens. They have found that for all hormone sensitive cancers, so breast cancer, endometrial, ovarian, and even prostate cancer, eating more phytoestrogens is associated with lower risk of those cancers. So it's actually really good for you. And if you're wondering, ground flaxseed is also a good source of those phytoestrogens. So yeah, and it's for soy, it's good to choose organic if possible, because soy is commonly sprayed with harmful chemicals in the U.S. So if you can find organic soy products, that's always better. Luckily, most of the time, at least with tofu, usually the tofu I find is organic. This is like the cheapest tofu I can find at Ralph's. I know you guys don't have Ralph's here, but if you live in SLO or you go to SLO, the cheapest tofu is at Ralph's and it's organic. But I think most of the brands are organic anyway. So tofu, we're gonna go over how to cook it. So tofu, a lot of I really wanted to talk about tofu specifically because it's like the common like plant-based like protein that people think of, and a lot of people don't know how to cook it, or a lot of people try it and say they don't like it. But the thing is, tofu takes on the flavor of whatever you season it with, and it takes on the texture based on how you cook it. So it can so I would recommend trying it in different ways. Like if you tried it once and you didn't like it, probably wasn't cooked well, or probably wasn't cooked to your taste. So I wanted to just show you how I do it. A lot of people don't know that you should press tofu before you use it, or they don't know what pressing tofu means. So first of all, there are different types. You always see like super firm, extra firm, firm, silken. And most of the time when you're cooking, you're going to be using a firm or extra firm tofu. Those are the kind of the most versatile. They'll be the more like meaty ones, but when you cook with those, you have to press them or else they're going to be really watery. So what I do is I just take it. These are impossible to open. Oh my gosh, this one is opening. No. Most of the time, they don't open that easily. So what I do is I just like take a knife and I open it like this over the sink. And then you can take a towel and you can just sit the block of tofu on a clean towel like this and put the towel over top, and then take something heavy like a book and pretend this is a book. Take a book and sit it on there for at least like 10 minutes, and this will press out the extra water. If you have more time, you can press it for hours, and the longer you press the tofu for, the better the texture will get for the most part. But if you want an easier way to do it, you can get one of these. It's called a tofu press. And it makes it really simple. You know, I used to press my tofu with towels for years. And then I finally got sick of it and bought a tofu press, and it's so worth it because now all you have to do is pop it in there and press it in, lock it, and then press it down. And now it's pressing. And usually what I do nowadays is when I know I'm gonna have tofu in the next like couple days, I'll literally just press it and I'll stick it in the fridge and I'll just leave it there until I'm ready to cook with it. It'll last several days like this. Tofu will last like forever in these packages. They last way past the expiration date. The expiration date doesn't mean anything. So yeah, but if you did already press it and you have some left over, and you're afraid that, because it doesn't last as long once it's out of the package, so you can always just freeze it, and that actually makes the texture even better. So if you want to press your tofu and like dice it up or cube it, whatever, freeze it, then it'll last forever, and then once you thaw it out, it'll like and cook it. Of course, don't just eat it raw, unless you like that for some reason. But and then cook it. It'll have an even like chewier, like kind of like meatier texture. So most of the time you're gonna use firm or extra firm tofu when you're cooking. But there's also silken tofu, which is used for it's used for a lot of sauces and desserts and stuff. And that is what I've made your dessert out of today. And I'm going to do a little demo and show you guys how to cook it. So once again, I'm just going to open up the package by kind of stabbing it there. And silken tofu doesn't need to be pressed. It's very like squishy. If you press it, it'll just kind of fall apart. So for this chocolate mousse, it's super easy. It's only 3 ingredients. All you do is you take your block of silken tofu and you put it in there. Oops. Somebody just cleaned. I'll have to clean up after this. And you can just put it in the blender. And then you can add a couple tablespoons. How many does it say? 4 tablespoons of maple syrup. I don't know where the lid. Thank you. I don't know where the lid to this maple syrup is, but yeah, that was a little more.
Do you have a suggestion for a less sugary choice?
You could add less maple syrup.
Okay.
4 is kind of a lot, but it is kind of hard to make this dessert low sugar because it also has melted chocolate.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Leah is going to bring out the melted chocolate. I used this this time. I think for the chocolate mousse you used, I used that Enjoy Life brand. Thank you so much. So this chocolate was just on low on the stove, and you just add it in. You can also use like a darker chocolate to give it less sugar. Yeah. Oh, this is from Trader Joe's. Yes. Yeah. Most dark chocolate. Most. I thought you were. Yeah. I can't cook without making a mess. Oh, most dark chocolates are. One tip to like find really quickly if something is completely vegan or not is just to look at the contain section of the ingredients. So it'll say, so that you'll have the ingredients, and then below the ingredients, it'll say contains, and this just says contains soy, and if it contains milk or eggs, it will say that. So that's, as long as you know something doesn't have like meat or gelatin in it or something, and you're not like, you're not worried that might be in there, then you can just look at the contain section, and you'll know whether it's plant-based or not. A lot of them say may contain milk or eggs, but that's not, I wouldn't worry about that. That's more of a liability thing, like for the possibility of cross-contamination. It just means like the facility that they make the chocolate in also has milk and stuff. And so there's not really any milk in there. It's just they don't want somebody who's super, super sensitive to possibly have an allergic reaction and sue them. So they put may contain milk and eggs. Yeah, same thing with nuts.
Have you ever done it with like cow powder or oat powder instead of the milk and chocolate?
I have not. That would definitely be like a lower sugar. Yeah. But yeah, if you want less sugar, you can do like just a touch of maple syrup and then do like a really dark chocolate. Like if you did like a 90% chocolate, that would be less sugar. Cool. So I'm just gonna blend that up. And then you may have to kind of push it in a little bit there.
Is this a good daily protein source?
Let's just say it can add a few extra grams if it's your dessert. But no, not really a great source. Silken tofu has less protein than firmer tofus as well. So that's good to keep in mind. Yeah. Yay, I'm glad you guys like it. Okay, I think that's good enough. Yeah. So so whenever, bring your cup back up. At the end of the talk, we can serve up more of this. It won't be chilled, so it won't have quite the right consistency. Thank you so much. It won't be chilled, so it won't have quite the same consistency, but it's still, I licked the spoon when I was done, and it was really good. So, so these are just some ideas of different tofu dishes you can make. There's a lot of recipes out there for tofu egg salad where you just like throw this. You don't even have to cook the tofu. You just throw it in with like different spices and like plant-based mayo and whatever, celery or whatever else you like to put in it. It's really good. You can always do tofu veggie stir fries. You can use like teriyaki sauce or something like that. I like this tofu avocado rice bowl. So it's like tofu and avocado and like veggies and like served with rice, and then I eat it with seaweed. Just to show all the versatile ways that it can be used. Very different recipes, tastes totally different. And then you can always just season it however you like. And like I like to just do, a little bit of, you can just put like a little bit of oil and then do like paprika and garlic and pepper and like whatever spices you like, and just roast it or like bake it for a little bit or put it in an air fryer. I think that's the easiest way. I air fry tofu all the time, and then once it gets nice and crispy, you can like throw it in a salad, on a sandwich, in a wrap. The options are limitless. So hopefully that inspires you to try it. Cool. So next we're going to talk about meat analogs. So meat analogs, I made a little mess here. Oops. Okay. So meat analogs are also known as mock meats or fake meat or plant-based meat alternatives. And they're things that they're products that are made to look and taste and smell and even cook like meat. And they are also going to be high in protein, and a lot of them are going to be really similar nutritionally to meat. So right now the most popular ones on the market are Impossible Meat and Beyond Meat. Those are like the most well-known brands because they're very realistic. So a lot of people wonder, how healthy are these plant-based meats? Yeah, so like I said at the beginning, most of the health benefits of plant-based diets comes from eating whole foods. And these are definitely not a whole food by any means. But I think what's important to consider is what are they actually replacing in your diet. So if they're replacing something that's highly processed, if you're eating like plant-based chicken nuggets instead of regular chicken nuggets, or you're eating like a vegan hot dog instead of a regular hot dog, those are very processed foods. And so I don't think you could argue that the plant-based version is bad for you because it's processed, because it's replacing something that's also very processed. It's not going to be any worse for sure. And it's also important to note that we have evidence that that processed meats cause cancer, and that red meat probably causes cancer. So processed meat is a category 1 carcinogen, meaning it definitely causes cancer, and red meats are category 2, meaning they probably cause cancer. And we don't have any evidence that links plant-based meat alternatives or meat analogs to cancer. So I really believe that when compared to the meat version, that they're going to be better for you, at least when it comes to processed and red meats. And I just wanted to compare, to show you a little comparison here of the nutrition. I got this, so this is comparing Impossible Meat to real beef. And per serving, the Impossible Meat has fewer calories, less fat, less saturated fat. And saturated fat is that like bad fat, if you're going to say one's good, one's bad, saturated fat would be the bad. So it has less saturated fat. It has no cholesterol. It does have more sodium though. So whenever I cook that, I don't add any salt to it because it already has plenty in it. And it also has some fiber, which is good. And it also has a little bit more protein, actually. And then it's a fortified food, so it has all kinds of other nutrients like added B12 and a lot of other things that are found in meats are added to the plant-based versions. And one thing I wanted to note is that earlier I talked about heme iron and non-heme iron. And Impossible Meat actually has heme iron because they wanted to taste like meat. And so they were actually able to get genetically modified yeast to create heme to put in this food. So it's actually, the iron in this Impossible Meat is actually that more bioavailable form that you absorb better. Yes, it is vegan because it's coming from yeast. So it's there's no animal products at all in there. Yeah, it's really cool that they were able to get it from a plant source. Yeah, and so since there are a lot of different plant-based meats on the market, and not just the Impossible and Beyond, I wanted to point out that the protein of these plant-based meats aren't always going to match the protein of the meat version. So I just wanted to point out here, just for example, these are two different brands of vegan chicken, and they're very similar products. They're both these like chicken strips kind of that you can add to, you could kind of use them in the same recipes, use them the same way. But the Morningstar Farm one, if you can see, it has 24 grams of protein per serving. And the Tofurky brand only has 19 per serving. And so it can be hard to compare, just looking at grams of protein because the serving size is different. So one trick I use to try and make sure that whatever source I'm choosing has enough protein, if I'm looking for, a high protein source that's gonna, match whatever would be found in meat, is I look at the ratio of the protein to the fat, and I try to find something that has at least twice as many grams of protein as it does fat. And that really simplifies it, because usually they both are low in carbs as well. Like they're mostly just made up of protein and fat. So if you can look at that ratio, it's a really easy comparison. So the Morningstar Farms one has 24 grams of protein and then only 3 grams of fat. And then the Tofurky one has 19 grams of protein and then 10 grams of fat. So the ratio is much higher. The Morningstar one has a lot more protein. So I usually go for that one if I'm choosing between the two, if I have the option.
What
Yes.
oil is normally used or fat source for the Impossible or the fake meat?
Where's the fat coming from? The oils vary. I can check. This one is using. Oh yeah, okay. This one uses corn oil. I don't know what that one has, but it's not really the same throughout the. It's not the same on all of the brands, so you kind of just have to check depending. I've seen new Beyond products now a lot of them are being made with avocado oil now, which can be better when it's cooked at high temperatures. That is a whole other can of worms, though, talking about the fats and yeah.
Yeah, I think actually a lot of those products historically have been made with coconut fat, which is really heavily saturated fat. It's more saturated than lard is, and that really helps with shelf stability. Meaning it can stay on the shelf for a long time without going rancid, and it cooks nicely. It can also cook at high temperatures. Because of all the criticism that these companies have received, though, and trying to make their transitional meats healthier and appeal to an audience that is wanting health optimization, they are curbing some of that. Meat analogs are a huge industry that's growing every day. The science is really incredible, but at the end of the day, they're still transition meats, right? They're meant to transition you into a plant-based diet, not necessarily that you would be eating that forever, but it's just a substitute to consider.
Yeah.
So some of them are very saturated, though. So if you're worried about your cholesterol, that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah. That being said, I've been vegan for 9 years and I still eat this stuff. But when I first went vegan, Impossible Meat and Beyond Meat didn't even exist for the first 5 years that I was vegan. So that was a new exciting thing. So plant milks. Okay, so there are a lot of different kinds of plant milks. We talked about them a little bit already, and it can be really hard to choose. How do you know? There's 20 different kinds. How do you know which one to get? Yeah, Yeah, that is true. You kind of just have to try and see which one you actually like. But if you're like looking at the nutrients, a lot of the plant milks like almond milk and oat milk and stuff are going to be really low in protein. So if you're trying to match the amount of protein that you get in cow's milk, soy milk is a really great option because it has 8 grams per cup, just like cow's milk. And then another option is fortified milks, like this protein nut milk. It has added protein. It has, I think it's pea protein that they put in that. They also make like pea milk that tastes all right, I guess, but it has a lot of protein in it too. So that, yeah, that's a great way to like match or to get more, yeah.
Can you use that same that protein to fat ratio to decide which one's best for you if you're looking for protein and not wanting the fat, or inverse?
I'm not sure. I don't really look that much at the protein to fat ratios on. Yeah, it's not as easy of a comparison because a lot of them also have like added sugars and stuff, which is another thing I want to mention is that what a good rule of thumb is to try to get unsweetened so that you're not getting a whole bunch of added sugars in your diet from that. Yeah, I would just look at the grams of protein per serving or per cup, and 8 will match. 8 grams is like what cow's milk has, and then 10 grams is, a lot of them have, it's even more. So
you mentioned
yeah.
Pea protein. Do you know much about that? I heard some negative stuff.
I have
the peas and the protein.
I've heard good things about it. It has almost all of those essential aminos that I mentioned earlier. But I would be happy to look into it more and see. Yeah, if you want to email me what your questions about pea protein are, I'd love to look into that more for you and get a more educated answer. Yeah.
What does your 9-year case study indicate is the best?
I think it depends on what you are using it for. So oat milk, for example, is really, really yummy in coffees and lattes. There's a reason why it's so popular at every coffee shop now. That's usually what I get in coffee, but at home I usually go for soy milk because I like the protein. And there's a really specific brand of soy milk that the Silk soy milk, I think it tastes even better in coffee than anything else. But that's not the brand they usually use at coffee shops. So I only use that when I make it at home. And then also if you're looking for a more like a low calorie option, or you want something that kind of resembles skim milk or like tastes more like skim milk, almond milk is a good option for that, especially if it's unsweetened. Then it'll be low calorie.
Costco has by the box. Smaller, like I think there's 6 in a case, and it's good for a year.
Yeah.
You know, the smaller sizes.
Yeah, that is true. A lot of times it goes bad before I can use it. So I get those like small boxes of milk that are like they're shelf stable and they don't need to be refrigerated until they're opened. So that's also definitely a factor that I consider when I buy it because I can't drink the whole thing before it goes bad most of the time.
So it has unsweetened almond in the little boxes.
Oh, nice.
In a bigger box. That's Costco.
Oh, nice. I'll have to go to
that's
Costco.
Morning drink.
Nice.
What I use in my morning drink.
Nice. I'll have to go to Costco. Okay, so we're almost done here, but I just want to talk about some simple swaps that you can do to be more plant-based. So the first thing I would recommend is if you want to try these plant-based products, then I would just recommend trying multiple brands, and just see what you like. Just because one brand of vegan cheese tastes terrible doesn't mean they all taste terrible, I promise. And then if you're trying to bake without using animal products, usually almost any milk, like any plant milk, will you can replace it with you can replace cow's milk with plant milk when in baking easily. And then you can replace eggs. There's like so many different options. You can use applesauce, surprisingly, and you don't even taste it. Banana, ground flaxseed, or you can use a store-bought egg replacer. I just want to mention Just Egg for a second. Has anyone tried that? Yeah. The brand Just Egg, but it's plant-based eggs. It's made from mung bean protein. It's really good. It's like really delicious, and it like cooks exactly like eggs. I think it tastes better than eggs. I never used to eat eggs that much before I was vegan, but once this stuff came out on the market, I eat it too much. But it's made from mung bean protein, and you can actually make it yourself. If you look up like homemade Just Egg recipe, you can make it yourself for a lot cheaper, out of mung beans. And my friend made it for me once, and it was delicious, and also like cooked just like eggs. And so that was an even more like whole food, less processed way to do it.
Is it green?
No, it's yellow. Yeah, and if you add, usually you add like turmeric, and it makes it yellow. And then if you add black salt, it has a kind of an eggy. It has sulfur in it, so it has an eggy flavor. So if you add black salt to your vegan egg, like Just Egg, or if you're doing a tofu scramble, you can also like kind of make something that tastes like scrambled eggs out of tofu. If you add black salt to that, it'll give it that like eggy, sulfury taste, which is really cool. And then in a lot of recipes, you can usually swap just swap the animal products with a plant-based version of it 1-to-1. It works like almost all of the time. I've never had any problems doing that. And if you're trying to do, a more healthier, whole food, plant-based swap, something to try is if you, instead of like butter or mayo or something on like a sandwich, you can try avocado for the fat. And that's really good, healthy fat. And same thing with like in a burrito or something, if you have sour cream, guacamole like tastes just like way better, honestly. And that's, a healthier fat. And then, yeah, that is a,
To tahini.
yes,
Mayo.
yeah, the tahini was, I've made, tahini was on that salad. The salad was made with a tahini dressing. And yeah, tahini's great option there. And then in some things you can replace like chickpeas, or you can replace chicken with like chickpeas, for example. Like if you make like a chickpea curry, it's really good. And then if you have tacos, you usually use like ground beef or something. Try beans or something like that. And just a few last tips are if you're trying to transition to be plant-based, you want to transition slowly. Don't just try to do it overnight. You might, I don't know, you might just not get enough to eat. You might not know what to eat. And it's better to just try a new plant-based recipe every week or every 2 weeks or something like that. And before you know it, you'll have all these great recipes in your rotation, and you'll be eating a lot more plants. And also just make sure you're eating enough, because a lot of plant-based foods are lower calorie. So you might especially if you're eating a lot of whole foods, you might eat more, and you're used to eating meat, you might eat a lot more volume on a plant-based diet because, it's a lot more volume and a lot fewer calories if you're eating a lot of vegetables and stuff like that. And then also one last tip is for dining out, if you're looking for plant-based options, there's an app called Happy Cow, and it is really great. It shows you all the plant-based options nearby. It'll show you vegan restaurants, vegetarian restaurants, and it'll show you places that have a good vegan option on the menu. And it's great for traveling because you can find all those plant-based options nearby. So in conclusion, plant-based diets are healthier, they're more sustainable, they're kinder to animals and to people, and all of your nutrients can be met on a plant-based diet, but it's best to have as many whole foods as possible for the most health benefits, and even a small change can make a big difference. Yes?
Allrecipes.com has a vegan section.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I thought about recommending like a website or something, but I feel like there's just so many websites. It's so, yeah, that's great to know. Thank you. And any other questions? Okay, so they're passing out a survey for you. So they're passing out a few things. You should have already gotten the recipes for what we had today, but there's a couple things. One is this really short survey. This is for my internship. It's just they just want to see that this is just to find out like if you guys are if you guys learned what I set out to teach you.
You did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you. So if you could just really quickly fill this out, that would be really helpful. But even more important than that little slip of paper is this survey. So this is for my capstone project that I need to do to graduate. I'm working with the farm and I'm trying to create a plan to improve the farm and help out as much as I can. And part of that is getting some demographic data on who's using the farm, who's coming to these talks, and also get an idea of some stuff you guys might like to see either at the farm or at other talks like this. And so it would really, really help me if you could fill out this form. We're not collecting your name or any identifying information. But if you do that form, please read over this consent form because that data might be used in my capstone project and the data could be published. So it's important that we have your consent. But you don't need to sign it. You can just keep this page with you. It has my contact information. So if you have any questions about the presentation or about the survey or like what's going to happen to the data or anything like that, you can just reach out to me. So yeah, it would really help me a lot if you guys could fill out the survey. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you, Marisa, for having me. And thank you to Matt for running the farm and helping get the produce for the meals today.
Number 13, though, if you consider it, you guys will still have to be passed through.
Yeah.
Is there any additional questions or comments that anyone wanted to share? Then Dr. Mueller, I couldn't hear your question earlier about iron. Could you repeat that and see if I can address it?
The question was, does iron deficiency without with normal hemoglobin cause fatigue?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. In fact, I think most people show signs of iron deficiency before they're ever anemic, which is a low hemoglobin. And so oftentimes it's just an indicator that your iron stores are depleted and you need to replete them, right, before it gets to that stage.
that's fallen on that is your ferritin level.
Uh-huh.
Where does the ferritin level hit with your iron?
Usually that's your first one that shows depletion. So there's 4 iron markers, and that is an iron profile that shows, depletion or depletion. And so the first one that would show a deficiency would be your ferritin. Yeah. So hopefully you can catch it before, you ever have that clinical presentation, which is fatigue. All right. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.